Backstage again at the 2022 Iowa City Jazz Festival, starting off this Sunday with Camille Thurman with the Darrell Green Quintet. Welcome, you two, and welcome to Iowa City.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Great to have you here. Yeah. I want to start off with back in your early days, you actually at one point weren't going to do music.
Yeah.
There, you encountered some sexism in high school, and you were about to throw in the towel at one point, and you made your way to SUNY Binghamton, and you met a gentleman by the name of Michael Carbone. Is that how you pronounce
Yes.
it? Which led to you meeting up with Tia Fuller. Talk about that period in your life and what you were going through back then.
Sure. Well, I went to Performing Arts High School, and at the time, I was very fortunate for my first 2 years to have a teacher by the name of Bob Stewart.
Oh, what a great name.
Who was a wonderful tubist. Well, tuba player.
Oh, yeah.
I guess, yeah. And an incredible educator, and he had a way of teaching that just included everybody. And unfortunately, he left around my junior year, and the new teacher that kind of came in, it was kind of an opportunity, I guess, for the tables to switch and turn. And many of those principles of including everybody and being, I guess you could say, loving to one another went out the window. And the new teacher was just trying to establish, of course, having some sense of control over the students, and the students were not really paying that any mind, and they kind of basically did what they wanted to, and things got out of hand, basically. I remember a friend of mine, she played tenor, and the both of us would sit at our jazz band class for 40 minutes waiting to play because we would rotate sections in the saxophone section, and it was pretty rough. We had some really nasty things said to us, and just opportunities to play, it was a fight. And then when we went to administration, this was way before Me Too, there wasn't much that they said they could do because there was no physical assault or sexual assault. And this kind of, I guess, assault was just ambiguous. Even though we knew there was something wrong and that we were being discriminated because we were women, they couldn't do anything about it for 2 years.
Wow.
So for 2 years straight, myself and 3-4 other girls had to just kind of come together and really encourage each other to try to just get through school because the treatment was just terrible. Yeah.
And then you finally shook that off and went to SUNY. And
Well, I actually ended up going to Hunter College to take a semester off just to try something different because I was fed up with just dealing with music and the treatment of what happened. And I aced my first geology course, and I ended up finding a school upstate New York where I could get to go away and get away from my parents. You know how 18-year-olds are.
Sure.
And I got into this program, and it's funny because the program ended up having all these earth science and geology professors that were musicians. And I found myself kind of getting acquainted with them, and whether they played in a local symphony or in a rock band or whatnot, they had this love for the earth, but then also the love for the music. And then I had somehow ended up crossing paths with Michael Carbone, who found out that I came from New York City and from this prestigious school, and he was like, "You have to be in my band." And I was so traumatized from my experience in high school that I just thought, I'm the last person in the world you want in your band.
Sure.
And he didn't understand why I was saying all these crazy things, but it was because the treatment that we had experienced, it was just so traumatizing, and it kind of made you think, I don't think people would want to play with me because I've been told for the last 2 years that I'm terrible, you don't want me, so-and-so. And he kind of really encouraged me to take a chance. And he told me, which was the first time I ever heard it from a teacher, that you just need a safe space to learn. And for those last 2 years, it was hostile. We couldn't learn. We couldn't take chances. We couldn't try to figure out how to improvise and make mistakes because we were judged so critically and so harshly. So he kind of really opened my eyes into seeing that, oh, wow, not every place is like this experience that I had, and to take a chance and try to play music again.
And then another mentor came along, Tia Fuller.
Yeah, he was the one that introduced me to her. He told every year he would bring a guest artist, and he was like, I'm going to bring Tia. I did not know who she was. And I was like, okay. And then he brought her to the school. And that was the first time I ever saw a woman play the saxophone professionally and hear and see how she was respected just by what she brought to the table. I had never seen that. For the last 18, 19 years of growing up, I never saw a woman play the saxophone, and I never saw men respect a woman for how she sounds. And it just opened my eyes, and we ended up having a great relationship, and she became my mentor.
Neat, neat. And you kind of paid it back a little bit with your mentorship series for young women. It's called the Havona Hang, is it?
It's called the Haven Hang.
The Haven Hang, I mean. Sorry.
Yeah,
Talk a little bit about that.
it's a virtual mentorship program I started during the pandemic under the encouragement of Darrell and
All
my
right,
best
Darrell.
friend Uni. I wanted to do something to give back to young women to have an opportunity for them to hear directly from women in the industry how they got started, how they faced and overcame situations that helped develop them into becoming the women that they are, but also the musicians that they are. And I had the good fortune of having Dee Dee Bridgewater, Patrice Rushen, Maxine Gordon, and so many other great women artists, not just within music but outside music, to come and share their stories just to give encouragement and tell young women how they did it. Because a lot of times we might maybe see a few women here and there, but you don't really get to hear from them directly how they did it, what did they face, what are their stories, and how we're able to kind of relate with each other in our experiences.
It's a neat program. Is that
Thank
still
you.
going on then?
Yeah, it took a pause for the cause for a second.
Sure, sure.
But we're working on right now trying to get the program up and running.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, a great program, sounds like. And then, of course, you broke another barrier, becoming the first woman in 30 years to become a member of the Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra, playing both sax and singing, of course. You did that,
Yes.
the John Coltrane Love Supreme project, doing the Coltrane part, no pressure there.
Yeah.
And you had the Ella Fitzgerald program, and you
Yeah.
did one of Wynton's large pieces.
Hmm.
Talk about your experience with the JACL.
Oh, it was an incredible experience. Just to make music at such a high level with a prestigious band like the Jazz and Lake Center Orchestra and get to work with Wynton. It's surreal because I remember my mother used to play VHS tapes, yes, my age, of their workshop videos when I was younger. And now to be working with them in the section and playing these parts and years later, I remember, I never forget, I met Victor when I was 13, and it still blows my mind how 20 years later, wow, I'm in the same section as Victor Goines, and we're just rapping about clarinet. It was just a beautiful experience because I felt like somehow along the way the path somehow led me there, even though I didn't know I was going to end up there. And when I ended up there, it was just like, this is so full circle and beautiful.
And I don't imagine you encountered any sexism there at all.
Oh
I wouldn't
no,
imagine.
not at all. The guys are like my brothers. In fact,
Absolutely.
they look out for me on the road. Like I remember I tried to go somewhere just to grab a bite to eat, and Wynton's like, "Where are you going?" I'm like, "I'm going down the block to get something to eat." He's like, "No, we're going with you." So they're gentlemen.
That's cool. Darrell, when did you encounter the first time Camille, and when did you guys start working together back in the day?
We met at a jam session actually in New York. I seen, first of all, like we all know at the time it's very rare to see young ladies on the scene, especially hanging at night. And she was out with her friends with their horns, and you see them, but they got up there and they sounded good. They could play, And so I remember I said, well, let me go introduce myself and let them know because I know how it can be, out on the scene and stuff, and just let them know, like, hey, if you ever see me around, know, somebody that got your back, that's in your corner, that can help you out. So I kind of went and introduced myself, and I told them, I said, hey, you guys ever need anything, just let me know. You sounded wonderful, and we out late at night, so if you out hanging and we in the village, I said, if you see me, let me know, because before I go uptown, I can give you a ride instead of them sitting out there waiting, in the dark by
Sure.
themselves for a train. It's crazy out there.
Yeah.
So, that's how it really began. And then, as the years went on, your friendship grows and things like that. And then, really, we started work. We were doing like little things on and off, but
Mhm.
the band actually came together because I had a gig with three guys like Dwayne Burno and Anthony Wanzi. And I remember I asked Camille, I said, oh, come to the gig, come check it out, And she came by, and, the gig went great. And we had such a great time. When the gig was over, we were still on the bandstand just talking and hanging. And Camille came up. And, as the evening went on, Anthony Wanzi started playing some things on the piano, and Dwayne Burno started playing the bass, and then Camille started singing. And then I sat on the drums, started playing, and I was like, this is the band. I was like, we have to do something.
Yeah.
And that's really how it started. That was the beginning. It was like, we have to, because it was just like that moment. It was just like a spark. And you're just like, oh, wow, we have to do something. And that's kind of how it began.
And eventually, you were married last year, weren't you? Early
Yeah,
last year.
much later. But I mean, it's funny you say that because around that time, not too long after, we ended up getting a residency at Smoke Jazz Club in New York
Right.
City, and then that's when we really solidified the band.
Right.
Because we were performing every week on a Wednesday night, and it helped us to just really pull everything together and develop the band.
Has your marriage changed your musical relationship at all, or
No.
It's pretty much the same.
like you missed that note last night? No coffee for you this morning. Let's.
Well, I think the thing is just being really supportive of each other and just knowing, like, this is we're in this together.
Mhm.
So let's, know that, especially, sometimes you get heated in the moment and you're like, hey, duh, yelling across the stage and stuff. Like, nothing's personal. It's just we're in the moment trying to communicate. We got to make this happen,
Get to the
Sure.
music.
So,
And
Yeah.
you've taken some interesting tours. You did a State Department tour of Paraguay and Nicaragua. Were you both on that, or was that?
We,
I didn't do that when I did the.
we did the one in Africa together.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Talk about your travels. Those are fascinating things. How was jazz, accepted in those places that you went, those far off places?
Well, it's taken us to places where we've literally broken bread in the desert.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we went in the desert
And
and
Mauritania.
we kind of spend a day in the desert in the tents with the nomads, and they cooked some bread in the sand for us
Oh,
and
interesting.
made tea. It was really great.
Wow.
Yeah.
Great experience.
We've gone pretty much everywhere. I remember we went to oh my goodness. My brain is not working this morning. No. We went to I can't remember which country. Mozambique. There we go.
Mm.
I kept seeing M in my brain. And I remember at the time we went into the middle of Mozambique where they were having like a civil war.
Oh, north.
And
oh,
we had to have an army brigade bring us in to the town because
Wow.
it was kind of like
like they had the
top security.
escort us
Yeah,
from the hotel
From the
to
hotel.
the venue.
to the venue in the middle of nowhere because it was kind of like really crazy. But what was so beautiful about it, they had this enclosed space and all these children were hanging right outside the gate. And we were like, hey, we need to have these kids in the concert. They should come in. And they brought the kids in and we were able to, as we were sound checking, we brought the kids up and got to show them our instruments and got to play. And it was such a beautiful experience because, this music, you hear the stories about Dizzy Gillespie and, of course, Louis Armstrong and how they were, this music for them made them ambassadors culturally. And we kind of felt like we were going in the same steps with this opportunity because it was just great to be able to connect with people whose lives maybe have never even seen jazz. I remember we were in Cameroon and we had a concert like in the middle of nowhere. Everybody brought their chairs out and we were in the middle of a song and these people came out and just joined us on stage, started dancing.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, you would never see that in New York City.
Yeah, they came on stage, started dancing, and it was just it was really beautiful, to see how the different villages, different countries we went to, how everybody once the music got going,
It broke the barrier.
it's like everybody understood each other, and even with the children, sometimes adults, you're trying to make an event perfect. We just, get the kids out of here,
Mm.
But I mean, it's always beautiful for the children to be there
Yeah.
because that's how they get their introduction, their experience with the music, with the instruments and things like that. And even for me, thinking back as a child, I never forgot all those initial moments of dealing with the instrument or hearing music.
Touching it.
Those things, set me on the course of my whole life. So you never know.
So was the music accepted everywhere you went, or were there some places where they just didn't get it, or
No, it was
pretty much all positive?
everywhere. And one beautiful thing, because we travel together, but we also travel separately, and I've done some other things in other countries through Africa and the Middle East and things like that. And one thing that I like is that people sit there sometime and they hear you and they love it and they're like, oh man, and then they say, can we play for you?
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, of course, you know,
Yeah.
and that's beautiful because it's like they want to share their, their culture too, and then usually it ends up, after they do that, we come together and try to do something together. So
Yeah.
that's so beautiful to
I was
me.
going to say, have you ever used any of that material that you've heard on the road into your own music? Then any of those
I, I,
exotic
def-
sounds?
I definitely do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah,
I definitely do.
that's
Yeah.
neat. Talking with Darrell Green and Camille Thurman, who are going to be at the Iowa City Jazz Festival here in just a few moments. The most recent project I know of is Fortitude. Talk a
Mhm.
little bit about the new project.
Sure. This new project features the quintet that you're going to hear today. Wallace Roney Jr. on trumpet, Bruce Edwards on guitar, Tom DeCarlo on bass, myself on saxophone and voice, and Darrell Green on drums. And it features compositions that we wrote during the pandemic, as well as some other things that we've been kind of
Hmm.
working on during that time.
Yeah, so it kind of it didn't really start out as a project. We were just
No.
in a pandemic, and my goal was like, since we're home and everybody's isolated, let's just play every day.
Yeah.
Every day, we got to play every day. And so we played every day, and, eventually, songs kind of just appeared. You're just like, oh, wow, that's a nice one.
Yeah.
And you refine them and you perfect them. And, once things started kind of opening up a little bit more, you realize, like, wow,
Full album.
we have material here. Let's do something with it.
Yeah, I've heard that from a lot of musicians that, it was a pandemic and it was horrible and everything, but these people got a chance to, practice like they've never practiced before, and they had a chance to write music like you guys did,
Right.
Yeah.
taking advantage of that situation back in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I also read you had I don't know if you've done this show already, but doing Burt Bacharach music, and then I assume that's it as vocalist.
Well, we just did a program at the
Okay.
Appel Room at Jazz at Lincoln Center this past. Oh wow, we're in July already. This past June, and it was featuring the music of Burt Bacharach reimagined. So
Hmm.
we had to narrow it down to like what 9, 10 pieces out of the hundreds of pieces that we had on the list, and kind of find a way to make it our own and reimagine it. And it featured Buster Williams on bass, Romero Lubambo on guitar, Michael Wolff on piano, and the both of us. And it was such an amazing experience getting to perform with those master musicians.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was kind of a short run thing.
Well, it was a project 2 years in the making
Oh.
because it was supposed to happen right before the
Oh, sure.
pandemic. But we're talking right now about trying to see how we could put that to album.
Yeah,
Right,
I was going
right.
to say that'd be a great album.
Oh yeah.
I'd be interested to see what you've done with that music.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun, and I think the one thing about the music, about this music especially, is that it's not just one age group,
Yeah.
or it covers the gambit. It's always from the youngest to the oldest, from the men to the women. Like even historically, a lot of people don't know, but if you grew up in the culture, you know that a lot of those great cats that we know, that they were taught or influenced by a lot of women you never heard of, but they were always a part of the music. Always, it's the the marketing aspect that kind of made it male dominant, but within the culture of it, women were always there. So it's kind of beautiful to see today that they're being spotlighted and not pushed down and hidden and things like that, and supported. And also just to see, now you can see it coming together with the men and the women and the age group. And that's one of the things that's so important to me, because when I was starting out as a young person, young musician, I always had so many older people kind of guiding me.
And women, Faye Carroll.
I mean, my earlier years is almost predominantly all women musicians.
Band leaders.
Band leaders, strong band leaders that taught me so much. It's incredible. I mean, and it's, it's men too, but it was just as many women. And that's the thing, when I would hear people say, oh, the ladies, and I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I didn't ever experience that, because it was always both,
Sure.
But also just the age group. When I played this festival actually in
20 years ago.
I think 2002. with LeVay Smith.
Okay. Oh yeah.
So
And her Red Hot Skillet Lickers.
yeah. And
What a
but
fun show.
yeah, it was a great show. But one thing about that band, and one thing about being in the Bay Area at that time, for me growing up was, I mean, I was on a roll with these musicians that were like 70, 80 years old, and they were younger than me and my friend Howard. Their spirits was just so young and so energetic, and they made me feel old. And I was like, man, how are they younger than me? And then, and then they also just taught you and encouraged you and just helped you mature and grow. And it's passing it on.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's so important about, what we're trying to do. And also, with the Burt Bacharach project, it allowed us to have the opportunity to play with some of elders that we really admire, and because that's a part of it. And we learned so much just the rehearsals.
Oh man.
It was just like, whoa.
Our minds were blown. I mean, Buster Williams, he's the Buster Williams who worked with Herbie Hancock, but he also worked with Sarah Vaughan. So for me, I was fangirling the whole time. Like, okay, you got to play the music, but this is Buster Williams. And then, of course, Michael Wolff, he worked with Nancy Wilson. And then you have Romero Lubambo, who worked with Diane Reeves.
Right.
So for us, it was just like a full circle. Like, we're getting our education right now with these amazing musicians, but at the same time, like what Darrell said, playing this music that touches so many generations. And also showing and proving to people that jazz is not stuck to just one type of music. It's really about what you make it, whether it is a traditional standard or something that you hear in pop culture. It's really how we express it.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because the standards, if we really think about it, the American Songbook and those standards, that was pop culture at that time. And they took that music and
made it their own.
Yeah, so I think that's something we should continue to do. Take
Absolutely.
things and,
Absolutely. So as such a fine saxophonist and a fine singer, which do you take more pleasure in?
Oh, I always get asked that question.
Or which gives you more satisfaction?
They both give me satisfaction because I learned them both at the same time. So I don't even really think of them as separate entities. I think of them as one instrument. Because when I was learning the saxophone, I was using the voice to help me understand the melodic relationships and the harmony with those transcriptions and the lines that would fit over the changes, and vice versa. When I was listening to the voice, I was listening to how you're able to use the air to shape the sound and to help you with the phrasing. So I can't have one without the other. They both work together always as one.
So are any new projects in the works that you'd like to talk about, or just
Well, we have
traveling?
42 that we're trying to get out probably by the end of this year. We have the Horror Silver project that we've been sitting on. You might hear one piece today.
Oh, excellent.
Featured from that project. And
we have we did another record of some standards that we put some arrangements to called Spring Awakening.
Spring Awakening.
And that'll be out very soon as well. So.
So we have a couple of treats we're sitting on that's going to be out
Excellent.
soon.
Well, thank you so much for taking some time, Camille Thurman and Darrell Green, and the ensemble playing here in just a few minutes at the Iowa City Jazz Festival. And good luck in your future endeavors, and thanks once again.
Thank you so much for having us.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.